Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of Health Declassified, where we uncover the truth behind health and wellness. And that's all aspects of health and wellness. And we do that by bringing you really interesting and expert guests. And today is no exception. But first, let's introduce co host Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to delve into this topic today. And we're so excited over this next guest. We are so privileged to welcome Rabbi Daniel Cohen to the show today. Hello, Rabbi Cohen. How are you today?
Good, thank God. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. And I'll just give a brief introduction for Rabbi Cohen. He's a popular motivator, mentor, and inspirational speaker. He has served in the rabbinate for over 30 years. He's the author of two books. The first, What Will They Say About You When You Are Gone? Creating a Life of Legacy. And the second, The Secret of the Light. And today, he's here to chat with us about creating a life of legacy. So let's just dive right in. Rabbi Cohen, many people are wandering aimlessly, not knowing their purpose in life or which the direction they should go. They're just caught up in everyday life. How would you help someone feeling this way?
So I would say, by the way, that number one, that's really one of the great challenges of all of us. I mean, we are in many ways go down the path of least resistance, which is to say, I have a lot of things to do. I
Yes.
feel like I'm accomplishing a lot, but am I really doing what reflects the deepest desires and what my soul wants me to do?
Mm,
And I've oftentimes found that, number one, acknowledging the fact that people are even asking that question is the beginning of
mm,
fueling a better future for them.
Mhm.
It's easy sometimes to lament the problems and I wish my life was different, but even the wish itself is God whispering in your ear and saying, I believe in you, I love you, I have faith in you. Don't define yourself by your past. Define yourself by the choices you can make today to help try to make your life better. And then what I try to do is really, help people engage in that exploration. And, the first step is tuning out all the outside noise
mm,
and creating some sacred space to answer questions, which I call developing your prototype. What is the kind of life you want to lead? What are the 5 words that you want to be remembered by? If you had 24 hours to live, what would you do and why? And then that becomes your template almost, or your North Star for what I try to help people do is then reverse engineer your life so you lead the life now for how you want to be remembered.
oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very, very.
that's deep. Okay.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense, though. Makes a lot of sense. So, Rabbi Cohen, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I believe many of the problems of modern society have arisen in many ways because for most people in the West, life has become too comfortable since the aftermath of World War II. There's been no global conflicts. Now, this doesn't apply to people in Israel. And my upbringing was a Rhodesian where we were very much like Israel fighting a terrorist war, had the whole world against us. So it doesn't really apply. But I'm talking about the West. The Vietnam was essentially an American problem. It wasn't global. And Iraq, Afghanistan, all the other conflicts have been fought by regular soldiers rather than conscripts. So am I onto something here? Do you think life has become comfortable in many ways, and that's why people have lost direction?
I definitely think that is, a challenge. I mean, it's spoken about in the Bible where, Moses says, the challenge is when you're blessed with wealth or affluence or comfort, we begin to feel that we run the show and we take for granted all the blessings that we have and we just kind of move
Mhm.
on to cruise control. That being said, we have so much potential to really make a difference in people's lives, to focus not on what is urgent, but on what is important. And I think you're right. It is a challenge. Look, if you talk to somebody, and this is part of the motive for me getting involved in this journey, when somebody experiences a personal crisis, my mom passed away from a brain aneurysm
Mm,
when she was 44 years old.
Wow. Oh dear.
And I'm one of six, and my whole life was turned upside down. But I learned in that moment that life could change in an instant, and that was when I was in my 20s. But the launching pad for this journey, though, that we're talking about today, was I always knew my mom was young, but when I got to the same age as my mother, I began to asking myself, am I doing the most that I can with the life that God has given me?
Mm.
And the challenge that we all have is not living life like you say, when there's a time of war, you're thinking about like the little blessings that you have, but not to wait for
Yes.
crisis, but to live life in calling. And I'll just share one story that I think hits home for a lot of people. It
Hmm.
was the summer of 2020, the height of COVID, and there was a
Hmm.
94-year-old man in Italy who had to be on a ventilator because he had COVID. Thank God he recovered. And then on his way out of the hospital, he was given a bill for the ventilator for one day. And
Ah.
he began to cry. And the doctor said to him, "Are you crying because you don't have enough money to pay the bill for the ventilator for one day?" And he said, "I have enough money, but I've been breathing God's air for free for 94 years. And now I know how much one day's breath is worth."
Mhm. Wow. What a story.
And when you hear that story, you realize that there by the grace of God go I, and it
Yeah.
creates a bit of an inner awakening that if God put me on this earth today, there must be something unique for me to contribute to the world around me. And we tap into a higher frequency of living. I listen to people. I anticipate acts of kindness. I make decisions not that are convenient, but based upon conviction.
Hmm.
I try to forge memories that will long outlast my own life. And your life becomes radically more meaningful and more impactful.
Hmm. So you have engaged in many conversations with people at the end of their lives. So what would you say is the essence of a meaningful life?
I feel like turning that question back to you. What do you? Let me ask you the question. What do you think?
That what a great question. For me, the essence of a meaningful life is a lot of people that are wrapped up in careers, they think that, having been a high-powered executive may be the important thing, but what is left after all of that is being remembered for the person that you are, for being kind, for being generous, for helping others,
Yeah.
um, to be in service of others.
Yeah. By the way, you get an A+ for that. That was great.
Oh,
You know, I do think you kind of hit the nail on the head because, at the end of the day, and I've had conversations with people, and near the end of their life, what's most important are the relationships that they've built,
Hmm.
the
mhm.
way they've given to others. There's an idea that King Solomon says that when a baby is born, its hands are clenched, and when a person dies, the hands are opened up.
Open.
And all of life is about learning to be a taker and moving to become a giver.
Hmm.
And that to me is the essence of life. We're all conduits for God's blessings, for everything that we have. And our lives become much more meaningful when they're aligned with that sole purpose, which is why we are brought into this world. And it's by emulating God, walking in the ways of God. It's about being slow to anger. It's about being patient. It's about, and this to me is very important, doing acts of kindness without expectation of anything in return. When it's not about what can you do for me, King Solomon says in chapter 11 Ecclesiastes, he says, cast your bread upon the waters,
Hmm.
and maybe one day it will come back to you. Imagine if we lived in a world where people weren't asking, what do I need? But what does God want of me in this moment? How can I be the ambassador for God's light? And that could be anywhere and any time. I'll give you a story. I was in Philadelphia a number of years ago at a train station, and an older gentleman said to me, I guess it looked like a generous guy. He said, "Can you buy me dinner?" And I said, "Sure, I'll buy you dinner." So I actually said, "I'll buy you dinner at the Dunkin' Donuts." And he said, "Would you mind buying me dinner at the Cajun food, which is right over there?" I said, "Fine, I'll buy you the Cajun food." So I bought him dinner. And as I was leaving, I said to him, "What's your name?" He said his name is Sam. I said, "Sam, God bless you." And he turned to me and said, God has already blessed me. He sent me you.
Oh,
Ah,
And that's the way we have to see our lives. Like God designs moments, but it's up to us to unlock the potential in that moment to, as you said so beautifully, be in service of others, be the ambassadors to bring more kindness to the world.
mm. Oh. I could listen to
wow. That's
more of these stories. I absolutely love them. They're so impactful. Do you have
that.
another story that
Oh, I
you
got a lot of stories. I got a lot of stories. I mean, I'll tell you, like
But
one of the things that, go ahead. What do you want to say, Peter?
no, 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 no. I don't want to hear your story.
Okay. I mean, there's stories all the time, but one of the things that I talk about in the book as one of the principles for leading this life is called discovering your Elijah moment. And I'll explain what that means. The
Yeah.
Elijah moment is about recognizing that we may not be able to change the world, but we can change the world of one person every day. And it's based upon a beautiful idea that Elijah is a prophet who comes into your life to help people. And the story is told about a person who goes to a mystic and says, I want to see Elijah the prophet. Like I've perfected myself. I want to see Elijah. And the mystic says to him, go into the forest. There's a widow there and bring food for the Sabbath, for the weekend, and you'll see Elijah. So he goes there Friday night, Saturday, no Elijah, Sunday. And he comes back to the mystic and says, you promised me I would see Elijah the prophet. So he says, bring the food again. This coming week, you'll see Elijah. So it's Friday afternoon. He's within earshot of the home, and he hears a young child crying out to the mother, saying, Mommy, where are we going to get food from for this Sabbath? And she turns to the child and says, just like Elijah came last week, Elijah's going to come again. And he realized in that moment that he was the Elijah that this person was waiting for. Mark Twain says the two most important days of your life are the day when you're born and the day when you understand why.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
there's so many moments when we may be that person that that individual needs, and that's the way our souls are set on fire. I was meeting with a group of women a number of years ago, and I said, tell me about one of your most spiritually uplifting experiences. And a woman said, I was at a supermarket parking lot in West Hartford, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw an elderly man getting out of his car, and he had orthopedic shoes that were untied. And I went over to him and I asked him if I could help him tie his shoes. And she said, as she bent down to tie his shoes, she felt closer to God than almost any time in her life. Because in that moment, at that time, she was there when that person needed it most.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that to me is what legacy is about.
Sure.
Legacy is created not in the days, it's created in those little moments when we really can lift somebody up and make sure that they leave our orbit feeling better about themselves than when they entered our orbit.
Mhm.
and to that, a lot of people out there would say, well, I'm not a world-renowned philanthropist where I can donate millions and millions to charity and my name goes up on buildings but you can make a difference. Like what you're saying is that just one person, you touch the life
Yeah.
of one person and you've made that person's life better. Or, who knows that you could be sitting on a park bench one day and the person next to you may be thinking of taking their own life, and just striking up a conversation with that person may have changed their minds.
Yeah.
You just never know how you will affect another person's life. And we forget that, don't we? We forget about those moments in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's also, go ahead, Peter.
No, no, no. I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing.
No,
Carry on.
what I was going to say is I think we have to recognize that, you know, embrace the place. And I'll explain what I mean by that of where we are. Sometimes we're so focused, and I like to say people have Paul McCartney disease or Annie disease. Paul McCartney's disease is you ask them how they're doing, and all they can say is, yesterday, all my troubles. Like I would have, I could have, I should have. And there are other people with Annie disease. Like, how's it life? Well, tomorrow, tomorrow. But the reality is the only moment that we have is the moment that we're experiencing right now.
Yep.
And there's a very important idea that if I'm sitting next to somebody on that park bench, whatever it is, that's on purpose. And if it means saying hello or checking in or doing something, there's another soul that's there. And that's the way that we truly kind of unlock a lot of light. I'll tell you a funny story, but to me, it was a very good message because sometimes life doesn't go as planned. Does that ever happen to you guys?
Oh,
Oh
yes.
yes.
Right?
Oh yes.
Where you think you're going to go one place and then another place. So we actually were just spending some time in Italy, and we came back, and we were on a plane uh, from Israel back to Italy, whatever. And I get to the airport, and for some reason they let my seats go, and I wasn't sitting next to my wife on the plane. And I was like, wait a second, I thought we reserved the seats. And for about 3 minutes, I was like, what is this? Like they said, you didn't confirm the flight, whatever. Well, as it turns out, we ended up on a slightly different seat, and it was clear that God had different plans in mind. It was me and my wife, and we were sitting next to a woman probably in her 80s from Israel who just lost her husband 4 months ago.
Oh,
And she saw a book that my wife and I were studying together. And she looked over and she says, what is that book about? And basically it engaged in about an hour conversation with this woman who needed some support, who needed some guidance. And I realized, you know what? I thought my seat was supposed to be 3 rows back. And I did get a little upset for 5 minutes. But God said, you need to be here today. You need to be in this place. And thank God we talked to her because what it did was it opened up a new relationship at
hmm
35,000 feet. I'm not going to see this woman again, but I'll never forget that plane. I've flown a lot. But the truth is, the most memorable moments in life are when we do open up to other people, when we do share a little bit of our light. And that's really where heaven comes down to earth is when we don't think about yesterday, don't think about what I'm going to do when I land, just be present in that moment right now.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And everything you mentioned in those stories is comes from the interaction of people and God. There's nothing there that depends on, all right, you needed to pay for your plane ticket, but there's nothing that depends on having a lot of money in the bank or a fancy car or being able to stay in fancy hotels, right? Is there?
No,
And
nothing.
yet
It's
that's
so
what
easy. It's so easy.
so easy. And yet that's what so many people focus on. So just to reinforce what you said earlier, I had a huge wake up call in my life. I'll keep it brief because this is about you. It's not about me. But I went from being very wealthy and in business and then having 1,000 acre farm in Zimbabwe and employing a couple of hundred people to losing everything overnight when the Zimbabwe government decided they didn't want any more white farmers, right? So, and they put me in jail for 3 days to force me off my farm. So that was a huge wake up call. So now, 20 odd years later, I'm earning a fraction of the money I earned at my peak. I'm working far harder than I did at my peak, but I'm enjoying life a hell of a lot better than I did at my peak, right?
Yeah.
And I am very grateful for that wake up call because if not for that, I wouldn't have come to Canada and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. So I have, despite losing all the material stuff, I have a lot to be grateful for. And I just want to reinforce what you said earlier that that's what life's all about, making the most of it today, not harping on what we lost yesterday or what we anticipate tomorrow. But going on from that, you mentioned on your website that we need more civility, substance, and compassion in the world today. I believe we've lost that. It's not something we never had. I believe we had a lot more of that, certainly in my childhood, growing up in the 50s, 60s. I believe people were more compassionate, civil, and warmer and able to debate without getting angry with one another. What's happened? Why have we lost that?
I think part of it, again, this is my take a little bit, is that, when God becomes more removed from the world, I think it allows more room for ego, for
Hmm.
I'm right, you're wrong. I don't
Yeah.
see people as being created in God's image. I see them as caricatures of
Mm.
certain opinions, and I look at people one dimensionally. One of the things that I always try to encourage people to do is see other people the way that God sees them. When God decides to wake up another human being in the morning, he chooses not to dig for the dirt, but he mines for the gold.
Hmm.
He doesn't say, I'm not helping you today because you spoke gossip yesterday, or you didn't. No, God says, I believe in you. You're a diamond. You may be a little bit rough. You need to be polished, but I believe in you. And I think when a person is fueled by that godly way of looking at the world, I think it leads you towards being more accepting, giving people the benefit of the doubt, having a generosity of spirit. And I do think that that definitely, the diminishment of God in people's lives, I think certainly has led to greater conflict and less civility. I mean,
Hmm.
even for example, the notion of what words come out of my mouth. I mean, the reality is that also I think has been a challenge because today it's so easy to hurt people. And for that matter, it's so easy to help people with the internet, social media, but it also provides cover. There's a lot of anonymity,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
words are less cheap. Words are cheap today.
Mhm.
So I think that's also contributed to that with the gift of communication, we haven't been as focused enough on how do we not allow that to diminish the commodity of speech, but to really realize that we've been given one of the greatest gifts. We can create light, power, blessing with words, and we need to be more focused on that gift as opposed to using it to divide, diminish, and demean.
Yeah, you're right. And part of the problem is it's so easy to do that with, as you said, social media and the internet. If I think back to my teen years, childhood, teen years, early adult years, if you wanted to make a public statement as an ordinary person, it took quite a lot of effort to compose a letter to the editor of a newspaper, to put it to either to write it out, right? Not computer print it out, write it out, put an envelope, put a stamp on it, mail it,
Yeah.
and hope that you'd done a good enough job that they might publish it. And if you were way off track, they weren't going to publish it anyway. So there was a lot of effort involved. Or you could go and stand on a corner and speak and maybe get potatoes or tomatoes thrown at you. But it was a
Yeah.
lot more difficult then than it is now, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing that as you're talking, which is it's very hard for me to be uncivil if I have a personal relationship with you.
Yep.
Like today, there are a lot more people that are connected, but people may have a lot of acquaintances but fewer friends. There's less time when we do face to face with people. Like years ago, like, you spent time with people, in front of
Yes.
people, you built
Yes.
friendships. And when you do that, you grow to like them and you're more careful about what you say. You don't want to hurt them. But today, again, we don't have as many of those authentic
No.
relationships. So I think people are more inclined just to, again, treat people negatively and not try to build bridges.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
you're right there.
So,
Yeah.
so Rabbi Cohen, I think you've touched on this already, but how do we how do we find joy in this world, in this day and age, when we are so surrounded by negativity?
So I like to recommend a little bit what I call the 3-minute plan.
Hmm.
Okay. Because it's very concrete. People can do things in 3 minutes and everybody can schedule this. And this to me brings a lot of joy. 1 minute is a minute of prayer.
Mm.
Like where you basically, for me, I always quote the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, which says, those who have strength in God, their faith will be renewed. They will grow wings like eagles. They will run and not walk. Bring God into your life. Minute number two is a gratitude journal. Just take 1 minute every day to write something you're grateful for. But the key is don't repeat yourself. There you go. Right? You got to write different because the more that if you don't repeat yourself, then it forces us to see new blessings every day. And actually, we become trained to be more grateful. The third is use 1 minute every day to light up somebody's life, to make a phone call, to say thank you, to send a text. And I recommend that, let's say one day a week, you have a sheet of paper, 15 minutes, put it in your book. Just write down people in your life, just names. Maybe it's a teacher that impacted you a number of years ago. Maybe it's a relative who you wish you stayed more in touch with. Maybe it's somebody who impacted you. Just put down a list of all these people that you wish maybe somebody who's sick and needs a kind word. Use that as your base. And then every day go through one of those people. And I find that if you're very systematic about prayer, gratitude, and kindness, 3 minutes, nobody doesn't have time for 3 minutes, you will feel that your life has been uplifted and you'll be more joyful. So to me, that's actually a very manageable strategy.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Another one is somebody said many years ago, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Hmm.
Surround yourself with joyful people.
Mm.
Surround yourself with positive people. And there are positive people there, but that's why a person's access to news and the internet should be very limited.
Yep.
15 minutes in the morning, maybe 15 minutes at night, and that's it. Don't allow that negativity to get into your head, because that's the way news makes money, is by making us afraid, depressed, and anxious. So fill up your mind with positive things, surround
Mhm.
yourself with positive people that are leading joyful life. Joyful life is generated, love is generated not by what we get, but what we give. So find ways to volunteer. All those things will increase joy in your life, our lives.
And I think you're absolutely right about showing kindness actually makes you feel even better. For instance,
Hmm.
if you go walk into a store and you see somebody that looks just lovely, mention it. You look lovely today. And all of a sudden, you've brought a smile to that person's face. Or if you're going
Yeah.
through the drive-through for a cup of coffee and you pay for the person's order behind you, just buy a stranger a cup of coffee and you've made their day. It's just a
Yep.
small thing, but it means so much.
No, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, when you think about the moments in your life that lifted
Mhm.
you up, it's literally just a few minutes.
Yeah.
So for you, it's a few minutes, but
Mhm.
for the recipient, it makes their whole day. Agree,
Oh yeah,
totally.
absolutely. Absolutely. We're getting a little short on time, and I've got a couple of more things I got to ask you. And the one is, how important is faith in people having a meaningful life? And this is I think I know the answer because you're a rabbi. So that's the first part of the question, and the second part is, I have no experience of the Judaic faith, but I'm noticing a return to worship of quite a number of people in as Christians, people who haven't been to church for years in some cases. And I saw the wake up call and the turnaround during COVID when people were looking for hope and future. Is that happening in Judaism? And how important is faith to people, do you believe? So, complicated
So,
question.
and you have 90 seconds to answer. Just kidding. I think it's vitally important. I mean, I think on a number of levels that faith and hope really instill within us a sense of resilience, that there's a higher plan. The reality is that if we carry the whole world on our own, it's really depressing.
Mm.
Hmm.
And it also um, is very arrogant. But having faith recognizes that there's a lot beyond me that I don't fully understand. It basically says, look, you're part of a larger picture here, and God's not asking you to solve the world's problems, but he's also asking you to be a part of solving those and doing something positive. So to me, faith puts wind in your sails. It gives you hope when maybe you're down. It gives you also a sense of tremendous, I think, life purpose.
Hmm.
Because what it does is it gives me a sense that there's a higher power, a God that believes that I matter. One of the challenges for people today is that they don't feel that they matter,
Right.
that anybody cares, that what they do isn't going to make a difference in setting potentially a ripple of redemption in the world. And is it possible to be a good person without believing in God? Yeah, you can be a nice guy, but I do not believe that a person will be able to realize their divine potential and achieve the greatest, deepest sense of happiness and purpose without knowing that they're here to serve a higher power with a higher purpose. So I do see a
Hmm.
return to faith. I think that it's due to a number of different things. Of course, there's different challenges the world faces. I think there's a lot of counterfeit pleasures that
Mhm.
people have chased, and
Mhm.
they realize that at the end of the day, it doesn't really provide them deep happiness, and people are looking for it. And faith helps you navigate that. It
Hmm.
gives you a roadmap so that you're not just chasing things that are transient, but it gives you a real roadmap to find deep meaning, purpose, joy, and lead a very kind of authentically spiritual life.
Mm. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rabbi Cohen, can you tell us about your books and how people can get them?
Sure. So one book that I wrote is called "What Will They Say About You When You're Gone?" creating a life of legacy. And the idea really is to help people on a journey of identifying the best version of yourself. And then again, taking you on a journey of 7 principles to reverse engineer your life. What I have done in the past couple of years is I started something called the Legacy Academy, which is like a 10-month online platform where I serve as a spiritual mentor to help people walk through this. So if people are interested in learning about the book or about me, they can go on my website, www.rabbidanielcohen.com. You can reach out to me. And the other book that I wrote is called The Secret of the Light, which is actually a fictional story about a young boy in his 20s in New York City in the 1980s. And he has a crisis of faith after his mom suddenly passes away. And then he meanders across a street sweeper in Times Square who's a hidden mystic named Elijah. And Elijah sets him on a path to realizing that he has renewed purpose in life, that he can find light even in the darkest of places, and that even though his mother is not physically with him, his mother is ever present in his life. So it's a book of faith, of transcendence, of bringing light in places of darkness.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Fantastic.
And question on that one, your academy is open to anybody?
Anybody in the world. I had some people from Australia.
Anybody in the
Yeah.
world, international?
Yeah. So actually we've done each
Excellent.
cohort. What it is, I'll just tell you 2 seconds what it is
Mhm.
each month, people receive one video with one of the principles in a worksheet, which is about, let's say it's like Elijah moment, and they dive down
Mhm.
deep. And then the third week of the month is a cohort conversation with 5 to 10 spiritually minded people. And then the
Okay.
last week, I do a 30-minute one-on-one spiritual consult to help people integrate these values into their life.
Excellent. Sounds really good.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Thank you.
excellent.
And we're at the point in the episode where I would normally ask our guests, can you tell our audience one thing that they can do today to start making their life better? But you've already done that. But it's so important. Your 3-step program is so important. I'd really like you to go. Can you go over it briefly again for the benefit of our audience?
Sure, 3 minutes. So just put it into your schedule today. I would say 1 minute of prayer,
Mm-hmm.
1 minute of gratitude journal, don't repeat yourself, and 1 minute, which is making somebody's life better, a text, a phone call. Those really make a huge difference in people's lives.
Good. Thank you for that. And I'm pretty good at the first 2, but I'm very bad at the third. So that's given me something to brush up on myself. So thank you for that wake up.
My
And
pleasure. Thank you for.
And I needed the reminder about gratitude. And I know, Peter, that you have your gratitude book and you've told me about that several times. And yet, I think you're absolutely right how important it is to just pick out things in your life on a day-to-day basis, what that you're grateful for. And there are things. I mean, you could be having a really bad day, but there's got to be something in that day
Yep.
that you can give thanks for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
Always.
100%. There's a lot to be grateful for sure.
Excellent.
So, Rabbi Cohen, one more time, can you tell us how people can contact you?
Sure. So it's www.rabbidanielcohen.com, or you can send me an email, which is
Okay.
daniel@rabbidanielcohen.com.
Okay. Got it. And for the benefit of our audio listeners, those details will be in the description on whatever platform you are listening to this on. So from my side, Rabbi Cohen, thank you so much. I learned
Thank
a lot
you.
today. I'm really interested in your philosophy and your comments. And so thank you. And thanks to the audience for listening. Back to you, Kathleen.
Oh, Rabbi Cohen, thank you. This has been so uplifting. I'd love to have you back on the show at some point. I
My
think
pleasure. I appreciate it.
I think it does the heart good to have someone like you
Sure.
speak to them. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And thank you all once again for tuning into our show. We so appreciated having you. And until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.